Boy, you sighted people came up with another dilly, didn't you? This question's been coming up a little bit in the comments lately. What does a blind person imagine when someone refers to an object? Like, do you visualize something in your mind? Being blind since birth, I don't really visualize anything, right? Because I don't know how to see and my subconscious doesn't know how to see. When I think about something, I suppose I think about its properties. You know, I think about what that thing is, or its shape, or its size. But I think about my memory of it. For example, if you were to talk about a baseball, I remember what one feels like. Now, I haven't felt one in a while, but I remember it's got the stitching on it. It's round, it's dense, you can't squeeze it. You know, I remember the approximate size of it. You know, so I imagine what it feels like. That's what I go by. Not a picture like you guys, but it's something. So Ben, why don't you name off a couple of things and I'll describe what I think about when you say these things. I won't see it in my mind, but I can tell you about the things I remember. This is very strange, but I think you'll get it.
Okay, a bottle of soda.
I think about a bottle of soda, I think about the shape of it, like a Coke bottle, for example. I think about the plastic, I think about the cap, I think about the approximate size of it, the label, those things on the bottom, you know, so it doesn't fall down, the 5 things there. And that's what I think about when I think, and that it's cold to the touch, generally, if it's been in the fridge. It's so strange, because I mean, I do remember the shape, but I remember the shape in my hands, right? I couldn't imagine a bottle of soda on a table because I'd have to be touching it to know it was there. I see the shape through my hands. I don't see it with my eyes, I have to touch it. So I remember it always from my perspective.
How about a banana?
A banana, okay. When I think of a banana, I imagine touching one. So I'm imagining the sort of cylindrical object with a bit of a bend to it and that skin. And you know, it's in a bunch, it's attached to the others up at the top. And that's what I think of with a banana. And maybe if it's been sitting around for a little bit, it's starting to smell more like a banana. When it comes to the color of banana, I don't really think about that part. I'm not quite sure. I think a banana's yellow. I wouldn't think of the color because I don't see the color, and the color doesn't mean anything to me. I'm more interested in the shape and the size of it, and the texture.
How about a car?
See, a car is more difficult for me to imagine because I can't hold it in my hand, right? Like a big station wagon or an SUV or something like that. But I think of the parts, right? So I think of the door of where I'm gonna get in. I think about the seats inside. You know, maybe over on the driver's side, I think about the steering wheel and all that kind of stuff that's over there. But, you know, and the pedals on the floor. But I can't think of it as a whole. When I drew the car in a past video, I had to think about all the different pieces of the car, right? The different parts of it and how I could put it together on a piece of paper for you to look at. But when I think of a car, I just think about one part at a time. I mean, again, I can't imagine an entire car because I've never touched an entire car all at once.
When somebody says an iPhone, what pops in your mind?
Immediately, I think of the shape. Well, first off, I think of my own iPhone, okay? I have a 6. So I think about the shape of it, the rectangle, I think about the thickness of it, the texture of it, and then I imagine the buttons on the side and the home key at the bottom. And that's, boom, what's in my mind when you say iPhone. You know, I only think of the one that I know the best. It's so strange. I mean, of course I imagine it, but I just don't do it in the way that you do. When I say imagine, I'm talking about, you know, what I feel and what I remember, right? Because it's all from memory. But when you say visualize, I can't do that. Because to visualize means to look at it and to see a picture of it, and I don't. To visualize something for me is to remember what it feels like, and maybe even what it smells like. You know what I mean? It's fascinating that people can visualize things in their mind, but with time it must change. For example, for me, like my mom's been gone for an awfully long time now, and I remember her voice, but I'm sure it's not even close. I haven't heard a recording of it in years. So it's changed through time, and I would imagine that's what happens to your memories too, your visual ones, of something that you can only see once, or something that you haven't seen for years. I can't imagine that you'd be able to keep an image of it that perfect in your mind. It would have to change over time. And that's like what sound does to me and what, you know, shapes do to me too, I guess. Memorizing shapes is a strange kind of thing, I suppose. You know, when I was a kid, for example, geometry was done in raised line drawings. That's how they did it back in the day, right? And so it would just be raised lines of a rectangle or of a triangle or of an, you know, an isosceles triangle or of an angle, an obtuse or acute angle or a square or a parallelogram, whatever it is. But I remember those shapes in raised line drawings. But at the same time, I can remember solid versions of those shapes, like from building blocks or that kind of stuff that you'd have as a kid, right? Or Lego pieces, because they're different. There's square and rectangle Lego pieces and triangle ones and stuff. So that's what I remember for shapes, and that's how I was taught them. I think the moral of the story is this: the most important key here is our memories. I think that's what it is. I think that's what we base everything on. I remember things just from my memory of them. I can only imagine what I've ever experienced in my life. Right? I can't imagine something I've never touched. I can wonder about it, but I can't imagine it. If you've got any more questions that are gonna make my brain hurt, make me think hard about how I can explain my world to you, please let me know. I'll take a crack at it. This is a video you gotta see to believe. Wait. The object of this video was to shape up. If you were thinking this video was gonna make you laugh, think again. And think again and again and again, because that's what this video is going to make you do.